New York City has a strange way of pulling people into each other's lives. Sometimes gently, sometimes unexpectedly, but always with purpose. For Lena Ford and Ryan Hale, it happened on one of those chilly evenings when the wind smelled like roasted chestnuts, street lights glowed gold, and the whole city hummed with the promise of winter. Lena was a sophomore at Columbia University, sharp-minded, artistic, and fiercely independent. She came from a small beach town in Florida, where life moved slowly and the loudest sound at night was crashing waves. New York, however, was a different ocean, restless, electric, unpredictable. She loved it because it made her feel alive, even when lonely. Ryan was a junior studying architecture. He grew up in Queens, surrounded by subway noise, basketball courts, and a culture that taught him how to hustle early. He carried sketches everywhere, sometimes on paper, sometimes on napkins, sometimes on his arm when ideas struck too quickly to find a notebook. He loved designing buildings that felt like pieces of poetry. Their paths crossed one November evening in Central Park, during the annual Winter Lights Festival. The event was a huge tradition in New York: hot cocoa stalls, artists selling handmade candles, music students performing jazz near the fountain, families taking pictures under the glowing tunnels of lights. Lena had gone alone, wrapped in her long beige coat, hands stuffed deep in the pockets, trying to distract herself from the stress of her midterms. She stood near a vendor who was selling tiny glass bottles filled with colorful sands, something that reminded her of home, and she smiled. That was when Ryan ran past her, sketchbook in hand, chasing a runaway page torn loose by the wind. Come on, stop," he muttered, sprinting. The page flew straight toward Lena and slapped her leg. She picked it up before it could blow away again. Thanks," Ryan said, slightly breathless. "No problem," she replied, noticing the drawing. "This is beautiful." It was a sketch of the Bethesda Terrace, lit up with winter lanterns, snow gently dusting the stone arches. A moment preserved in delicate pencil lines. Ryan scratched the back of his neck. "Thanks. You'd think after 20 years of living in the city, I'd get used to the wind." She laughed softly. "Nobody gets used to New York. They just learn how to argue with it." He chuckled, then really looked at her warm eyes, soft expression, like she was a calm spot in the chaos around them. "Do you want hot chocolate?" he asked. Lena hesitated, then smiled. "Why not? A spark in the cold." They sat on a bench facing the frozen lake, sipping cocoa from paper cups. Jazz music floated through the cold air, blending with laughter, camera clicks, and the distant bark of dogs. "So, architecture?" Lena asked. Ryan nodded. "Yeah. I like capturing the city the way it feels, not just the way it looks. That's poetic." He shrugged. "It's New York, everything here feels like poetry when you're paying attention." She looked at him with interest. "You see the city differently. And you?" "I study literature," she said. "I'm trying to write stories that feel as real as the ones happening around us." He smiled. "So we both study stories, just different kinds." The conversation felt effortless. Natural. Like two people who were supposed to meet eventually. Before leaving, he shyly asked, "Can I sketch you?" She blinked. "Why?" "You look peaceful," he said honestly, then laughed softly. "Which is rare here." Lena felt heat rising in her cheeks. "Okay." He drew quickly, his pencil dancing across the paper like he already knew every angle of her face. When he finished, He flipped the sketchbook around. "Oh," she whispered. It was her, but softer, braver, and somehow seen. He tore the page carefully and handed it to her. "A memory of tonight." She held it gently. "Thank you, Ryan." They exchanged numbers before parting, both pretending to walk away casually, though both turned around and smiled when they thought the other wasn't looking. The days that followed. From that night onward, Lena and Ryan fell into a rhythm. They walked to class together, grabbed bagels from the food truck on Broadway, studied at the Butler Library, and spent evenings talking on the low steps, watching students pass by as if the whole campus was breathing in sync. Lena learned that Ryan dreamed of designing buildings that made people feel safe. Ryan learned that Lena feared failure more than anything because she'd always been the smart one in her family. She read him her short stories. He showed her sketches he never showed anyone else. Sometimes they sat in Riverside Park and watched the boats. Sometimes they rode the subway with no destination, just to talk. And one night, while walking through Times Square, Ryan stopped suddenly. "Lena," he said, voice soft but certain, "I think I'm falling in love with you." Her breath caught. The lights reflected in her eyes like tiny stars. "Ryan. I think I'm falling too." He kissed her there under giant billboards, honking taxis, street performers, and the endless heartbeat of New York. Cracks in the perfect picture. But love in college, especially in New York, is not without its storms. Lena's professor told her she wasn't pushing herself enough. Ryan's internship demanded long nights and early mornings. One week, they barely saw each other. Another week, they argued small things, but they piled up. One evening, Lena showed up at his studio with 2 coffees. She found him stressed, surrounded by crumpled designs. "You okay?" she asked. He exhaled. "I just need to focus." "I don't have time right now, Lena." The words were sharp, unintentional, but they cut anyway. She left quietly. He called later, apologizing, but she didn't pick up. Misunderstandings grew like cracks in sidewalk pavement, small but dangerous. The turning point. The winter semester ended with Ryan presenting his architectural model to a large panel. Lena wasn't going to attend. She thought he didn't want distractions. But then she remembered, he once told her she was his calm when the world felt overwhelming. So she went. She stood at the back of the hall, watching him speak passionately about spaces that made people feel protected. He glanced up mid-sentence, saw her, and his voice softened, not with fear, but with relief. After the presentation, he walked toward her. "You came," he said quietly. "I should have been here all along." He shook his head. "No, I should have let you in." She stepped closer. "Can we stop running from each other?" He nodded, eyes warm. "I don't want a life in the city if it doesn't have you in it." They hugged, letting go of everything heavy. A future written in lights. Spring returned with cherry blossoms lining the paths around Columbia. Lena and Ryan spent afternoons studying on the grass, sketching, writing, dreaming. One evening at sunset, Ryan led her to the rooftop of his building in Queens. "Close your eyes," he said. She did. "Okay, open." When she opened her eyes, she saw a small sketch taped to the ledge, the same drawing he made the night they met, but with one addition. Beside the picture of her, he had drawn the 2 of them standing side by side, holding hands beneath the Central Park lights. "You kept it," she whispered. "Lena," he said, his voice steady and warm, I want to build a life with you. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But someday. And somewhere in that life, I hope there's a night like the one we met. Her eyes filled with tears, happy ones. If you build it, she said, I'll write about it. He laughed softly, then pulled her into an embrace as the city lights shimmered around them like a promise. Dash dash. And that is how love grows in New York. Not fast. Not perfect. Not without storms. But beautifully. Honestly. Boldly. Two students. One city. And a love story that grew under the shadow of skyscrapers and the warmth of winter lights. A reminder that sometimes, the city that never sleeps is also the city that teaches you how to dream.